So today we are talking about psychic awareness or psychic sensitivity and the subtle body. This interesting thing happens when we start to meditate every day, when we start to practice mindfulness. In other words, when we start to become more serious about our practice, is we become more aware. Imagine that, the practice works. But one of the things that we become aware of is the subtle body, or the energy body, the energetic aspect of our being. Now, everybody has this awareness. It's just we learn as children to kind of turn it off. And I have theories about that. What I think happens is we develop our subtle body and it gives us information. We feel things. But then the adults in our lives tell us the exact opposite. And then, of course, they're in the position of authority, so we start to trust what we're told instead of what we feel. And over time, we just shut it off. We just turn that part of our being off until we start to practice and become more aware, and then it can just turn on all at once. So it's helpful to be aware of this expanded awareness that happens. It's helpful to understand that this is normal, that to suddenly feel things much more intensely than you used to is completely normal. It's not unusual when we start to meditate and practice mindfulness to be able to walk into a room and just know how people are feeling. Like, you might just suddenly sense that your coworker is having a really bad day, even though you haven't even stepped into the office. You're still in the elevator. And that's because our subtle body, this energy part of us, has this ability to travel beyond our physical location. It can be everywhere all at once. It's not limited by physical physics. So it can be very useful at times. Like especially when we're driving on the freeway, and we can just suddenly, if we're tuned into that, we know that the car 3 lengths ahead of us is going to start swerving. We might not be able to logically understand, like, wait, but if we understand that we have this extra layer of perception, we'll automatically compensate. We'll be like, oh, for some reason I feel like I need to switch lanes and get over here. And then from that lane, the safety, you might suddenly see that car swerve into the lane where you were. And then you go, oh, wow. But honestly, most of the time we don't get that kind of validation, that kind of feedback right away. So as I said, we all are born with this ability. You know, our subtle body is created by those who have raised us. So we're born with the start of a subtle body. And then those people who are around us most, which is usually the mom and dad or the caregivers, start to lend their energy to the baby, and then that subtle body continues to strengthen and grow up until about 7 years old. And that's seven-ish range. The subtle body is fully formed, and that line into them is no longer necessary. But that's a whole another discussion. I just want to kind of give you an idea about what the subtle body is. So we all have it, but like I said, most of us just kind of learn how to tune it out. But I want to show you that it's here right now. So let's do a little energy exercise, if you will. Just imagine this energy around you and inhale through your navel center. Now that's where your control dial is, if you will. So just kind of inhale, and you're going to pull your energy in nice and tight around you. So just, and then relax with your energy about arm's length around you. You might have to do that a couple times just to kind of pull your energy in. And now take your hands and rub them together. And then when they're a little bit warm, pull them apart just a little bit and push them together. And do you feel that tiny bit of resistance? That little bit is kind of a little bit squishiness. That's your subtle body. So the tighter that you can get your subtle body in around your physical body, the thicker it is, and the more you'd be able to feel that energy in between your hands. Now, many people, as I said, they just walk around without any awareness of their subtle body, but it's part of us. And some people have very strong subtle bodies, but they have no clue about it. So it's as if they're wearing these really billowy clothes, and they just walk around and they brush up against everybody. And sometimes, when you're standing in the room, even though they're like 10 feet away from you, you feel like they're squishing right up against you. And you're like kind of up against the wall. You're like, back off, dude. It's because their subtle body is just expanded. And sometimes we do that. We're not paying attention. Sometimes we're just really excited or really angry, and then we let our body just go fill up the whole room. Feel that? Or we can hold it in nice and tight. So as we become more aware of that perception that we have through our energy body, it's very, very helpful to learn how to control it. Because if you are having your energy body just super expanded, then you're going to feel everyone and everything that walks through it as if they're brushing up right against your physical body. So you'll pick up their moods, their mind states, their thoughts. Now, the subtle world is very interesting because it actually can leave impressions everywhere. So even when we walk down the street, if we leave our subtle body open really wide, we can walk down the street 10 minutes after somebody else who, maybe there was a couple and they were having a real gnarly argument and they're just like yelling and screaming at each other. And then 10 minutes later, you come walking down the street and you're in a good mood and you just came out of meditation class and bouncing down the road, and then all of a sudden you're just angry. Like, what happened? Oh, this person's in my way. That's in my way. That shouldn't be here. And it's because you just picked up on that residue that was left by the arguing couple. So there's a way around this, and that is to start to become aware of your actual subtle body and learn how to control it a little better. So that first exercise I gave you is key, just keeping your energy body tucked in around your physical body. So like I said, about an arm's length away. You can picture it like an egg of energy, this nice egg-shaped globe around you. And when you pull it in close, it's very thick and durable. So when you have an impression or another energy hit it, you can feel it at the edge. And there's this moment of choice of, do I want to interact with that energy or not? And if not, it can just go around you. But if you're not paying attention and the energy hits you, then you instantly interact with it, right? That's just like if you're walking down the street and somebody, bumps your shoulder, you can decide in that moment, do I want to have a confrontation or do I just want to keep going? Because sometimes, it's a good bump. Sometimes it's like, oh, I actually want to talk to you. Hi. And then other times it's somebody who's having a really bad day, and if you were to be like, hey, then they might punch you in the face. So good to be aware of the quality of the energy that's hitting up against you. It's not that it's in and of itself good or bad. It's just a choice point of, do I want to interact with that or not? So that's just in our ordinary day-to-day life as we're walking around, if we keep our energy nice and tight around us. Now, there's this tendency for us to cling, right? That's a common problem. That's like one of the root causes of suffering, is we cling to things. And energy is no different. We interact with an energy, and for some reason, even though it upset us and knocked us off balance, we keep holding on to it. We're like, that person was so mean to me, or, oh, they just felt really gnarly today, and I didn't like that. Or, oh, I couldn't believe that person on the sidewalk was so upset. And we actually hold not just the thought about that person, but that energy within our own subtle body. And you can imagine, if you do this on a continual basis, how heavy it all gets, where you're just kind of weighed down energetically. And one of the kind of default moves that people have is they just let their energy body out, and it just splats everywhere because it's too heavy to carry all tucked in, so they just let it splat, and now you're just dragging through life with this big giant curtain of energy. And it can be very unpleasant and tiring for you, and it can be very challenging for anybody that you run into. So it's a great service, great public service, to manage your energy. It's beneficial for you, it's beneficial for everyone that you encounter. So another exercise that we can do that's very, very simple is just clearing out the energy once or twice a day, or when we feel like we've picked up something. And there's just a very simple grounding exercise you can do. So first, pull your energy in nice and close, use your breath. And then again, you can use your breath to pull in the super bright light at the top of your head. And then as you exhale, you pull it through your body and you let go of anything that's extra. And you just allow it to come down through your root chakra, the base of your spine. You can also do it through the soles of your feet. There's chakras there. And if you're carrying a whole lot of stuff, it can be helpful to actually picture a line, like a little tube, connecting from the root chakra at the base of your spine and from the center of the soles of your feet, and let this tube connect all the way into the center of the earth. Because the earth is this amazing recycling plant. There's nothing harmful that you can give to the earth. No matter how gnarly and nasty it feels to you, no matter how destructive you think it is, the earth can do something with it. Like, she makes land out of lava, out of fire. So even if it's something just burning and just devastating, you give it to the earth, and she does beautiful things with it. So you can picture these tubes, base of your spine, bottoms of your feet, connecting to the center of the earth. And then you do this exercise again, where you just pull the light in from the top of your head and let it fill your body and pushing out anything extra with the exhale all the way, and it just goes into the tubes. Now, important point, you don't go down with the tubes. You just take whatever is no longer needed, whatever you have that's extra, and you just let it go. And gravity will do the work for you. You don't have to like push it out of your being, just like gravity. And this pulling this light in from the top will make sure that you don't create a vacuum and deplete yourself. Because if we just let go, then what happens is whatever energy is around us, we just immediately suck that in. So instead, we fill up with purity and just release. And like I said, doing this once or twice a day, or whenever you suddenly feel really heavy, can be very, very helpful. And nobody has to know. You don't have to make a big deal out of it. Like, okay, everybody, I'm grounding. Stand back. But you can just very quietly, like, and then you come back to neutral. You come back to how your energy feels. Now, discovering what your energy feels like at this point is also an important part of our practice, because we grow and we change, and we have been conditioned since the moment we took our first breath. Some might argue even before that. There's a genetic conditioning that happens. So we're filled with all these ideas, but beneath all of that conditioning is our own purity, our own connection with light, that clarity. And a really excellent way to get in touch with that is to go out into nature alone. You don't have to go 20 miles into the wilderness. You can just go to the beach, or you can go to your tree that's in your yard. If you don't have a lot of nature around you, you can just go to the flower shop and buy a flower, and that would work. And allow yourself to connect with that purity of nature, and just check out what do I feel like right now. Do those grounding exercises, and then just sit with your own energy and your own being, and check in. Say, what do I feel like? And it's not to judge it. That's really important. Don't try to judge it as like, oh, I'm really high today, or oh, I'm really low today. You're just trying to get a baseline awareness of what your energy feels like. And by doing that, it will make it easier for you to notice when you do get bumped by a different energy. Like I was talking about, you have your energy tucked in nice and tight around you, and you're walking down the street and something hits up against you. If you don't know what your energy feels like, if it's so chaotic because it's full of everybody else's stuff, and then you don't know what your stuff is and what other people's stuff is, and somebody bumps against that big mass, you won't even notice until much later. But if you have a clear idea of what your baseline feels like, and then you encounter a different quality of energy, then you have the choice of whether or not to interact with it, instead of it just being more confusion. So there's that wonderful benefit of not like just throwing your energy out all over the place, and it helps develop your awareness of the different qualities of energy available to us in this magnificent world. Sometimes we'll go on adventures out to the desert or different power spots, the mountains, the ocean. And we go there to experience the quality of energy that's available in those places. But we can also experience the very bright and high qualities of energy that are in the city, that are available to us in our own neighborhood. But only if we're aware, only if we start to tune our psychic awareness. So the tendency for many people when they start to meditate and practice in a serious way is they feel this added sensitivity and they want to just shut it down, turn it off. But if we do that, then we stop growing. We limit our awareness. So these are tools that you can use to actually embrace that sensitivity and start to work with it and play with it and use it as a way to become even more aware, to start to eventually start to unravel some of the conditioning. Because what will happen as you start to pay attention to when you get bumped or when you encounter these different types of energy, once in a while something will stick. It's like, when you get a little snag and it gets caught. So it's like this little hook on your subtle body. And you're just walking down the street having a nice day, and then all of a sudden, something's like there, and you're hooked, and you're like, ugh, what is this? I don't like it. It doesn't feel good. Why is it there? Make it go away. And sometimes you can just cut it off. Another time we'll talk about cutting lines. I don't want to overload you with too much, but I want to point this little piece out because it's very helpful. Is when you do get snagged like that, you feel that little hook to your attention. And even though, you're like, no, I don't want to deal with that right now, and maybe you can let it go around you, but you start to notice, like, okay, this is the same energy that hooked me yesterday. Wait, this happened last month. Like, I felt this before, and I don't like it, it's uncomfortable, and there it is again. That is a wonderful occurrence when that happens, even though it's horribly uncomfortable. Like, what do you mean? It's because that is life, who is the real teacher, showing you one of your attachments. It is showing you one of your literal hang-ups. So when that happens, when you start to notice this repeat of the pattern, I was like, oh, I got hooked on that energy again. Oh, knocked me off balance. I was able to ground myself and keep my balance, but it happened again and again and again. So that becomes a point of contemplation, where you take your little card and you write down, this was the type of energy, or this was the situation, some really short phrase that describes what you experienced. And you use that card as a point of contemplation. So you set your timer, like we talked about this in another class about how to contemplate. Contemplation level 1 is what I call it, because we're dealing with just attachments. Contemplation level 2 is when we take really high spiritual concepts and just let them churn in our mind. But this level of contemplation, we maybe do our meditation first, clear our mind, and then set our timer for 10 minutes, 30 minutes, however long you want to give to this contemplation. And then you pull out your card and you just think about that situation, that energy, that occurrence. And you do this deep dive into that. Now, of course, you'll try to run away. You'll try to come up with reasons why it happened that are very logical. But we're not looking for why. We're not looking for excuses. We're not looking for explanations. When we do a contemplation, we're trying to figure out how it's working. We want to know what's happening and how it's working. So we want to see, what exactly is it that I'm attached to that's causing me to fall off balance? How is it making me get knocked off balance? And every time we try to figure out, well, oh, that happens because my mother told me this, or because my uncle did that, or because I had this 3rd grade teacher who did this. That doesn't matter. Like I said, excuses and explanations are not the point. The point is to figure out what's happening and how it's working. Because once you see that clearly, then that energy, that situation, loses its power over you. Suddenly you see clearly, like, oh, this is what's actually happening in this moment. Now you might, most likely, will have to go through the experience a few more times. But it's different because now you have a level of awareness of what's actually happening. So even, it's like the pothole in the road. You're walking and you keep tripping and falling into the pothole. And you're just like walking the same way every day, and you keep falling in the pothole. This happens every day. And then finally, you start to meditate and you realize that, hey, I keep falling down every day. And then you start to realize, like, oh, I keep falling down the same area every day. So let me write that on my card. Fall down on my way to work every day, in between this block and that block. And as you're sitting and contemplating, you're like, well, what's happening? Oh, there's a big hole in the road. Well, how is that working? Oh, I step in it and I fall on my face. So the next time you're walking, you fall into the hole, but now you do it with awareness. And you're like, oh, here's that hole. I know what's going on. So immediately you're not spiraling into confusion. Now the tendency is to start beating yourself up because you're like, well, I should know better. I knew about this hole. So that's a different type of hole. So don't do that. But then the next time you do it, so then the next day comes along and then you fall in the hole and you're like, oh yeah, there's this hole. And maybe you kind of have a little laugh about it, like, oh yeah, I knew about this hole. And you do it again. And then it's like, okay, now I'm going to pay attention to the next time. So now you're maybe the 4th or 5th time you're walking down the same street and you're just about to step in the hole, and then it clicks in like, oh, I know this hole. Wait, let me put my foot over here instead. And then suddenly you're not falling in the hole. So that's how contemplation works. That's how becoming aware of your subtle body can help you expand your awareness, because you start to feel those hooks at an energetic level before they start to hit you physically. So, of course, all this starts with meditation. That's our foundation. So we'll do some meditation. So sit up nice and straight. I'm going to say goodbye to my YouTube folks. Thanks for joining me today. And please do the like and share and all that stuff.